If you've been scrolling through endless listings, squinting at spec sheets, and still can't decide whether a thermal monocular is worth the splurge, this is the review that will finally make sense of the noise. You've probably asked yourself things like, will this actually help me spot game at dawn? Or is the OLED screen going to drain my battery before I get back to camp? The answers aren't buried in the technical jargon, they're in how the device behaves when you're out in the field, and in who it really serves. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Leica Calonox Sight SE is marketed as a premium thermal imaging monocular that pairs with a riflescope, promising extreme precision and an extra-large field of view. At first glance, that sounds like exactly what a serious hunter or tactical shooter would want. A way to see heat signatures clearly, even at longer distances, while still fitting on a rifle without adding bulk. But before you click Add to Cart, let's break down what that promise looks like when you actually mount it, take a shot, and then try to pack it away before the sun sets. First off, the OLED display is the most immediate thing you'll notice. It's crisp 102468 pixels and the contrast is strong enough that you can tell the difference between a warm-blood animal and a patch of sun-heated ground at a glance. In real-world use, that means you can pick out a deer moving through a meadow at 1,000 feet without having to squint or adjust settings constantly. The display is also bright enough to be legible at 30% daylight, which is handy if you're hunting during the golden hour when many hunters claim the best light occurs. However, the OLED panel does eat into battery life faster than a traditional LCD. In my tests, the rechargeable battery gave roughly 4 hours of continuous viewing before the charge dipped below 20%, a solid day's work for many outings, but not enough for a multi-day backcountry hunt where you might be scanning all night. If you're planning on long, uninterrupted sessions, you'll want an external power pack or spare batteries, which adds weight and cost. Leica's image optimization algorithm is another selling point. The company built its own processing pipeline to enhance detail and reduce noise, which is useful when you're trying to identify a target at the edge of the instrument's range. Practically, this translates to clearer outlines on animals that are partially concealed by foliage. In a scenario where you're perched on a blind and a buck breaks tree line at 800 feet, the image stays clean enough that you can lock onto the animal's head without confusion from background heat clutter. On the flip side, the algorithm can sometimes oversharpen edges, making distant objects look slightly haloed. That isn't a deal-breaker, but it does mean you'll need to get used to the visual style if you're accustomed to raw, unprocessed thermal feeds. The 42mm objective lens gives the Calonox a generous field of view, about 14 degrees, according to Leica's spec sheet. In practice, that means you can sweep a larger area without moving the rifle as much, which reduces the chance of spooking wary game. For close-range observation, such as checking a tree stand's surroundings before stepping out, the wide view helps you see movement on both sides of your line of sight. However, the field of view isn't as wide as some competing models that push 20 degrees, so if you're a tactical shooter who relies on rapid panoramic scanning, you might feel a bit constrained. Most hunters won't notice the difference, but it's a trade-off worth acknowledging. Now, let's talk about the extreme precision claim. The monocular is designed to mount directly onto a riflescope's objective. The alignment is tight, and once you lock it in, the thermal image overlays cleanly with the optical sight's reticle. In a realistic hunting scenario, say, a morning run through thick brush, you'll notice that the thermal view helps you maintain proper hold without having to constantly toggle between the scope and separate handheld thermal. This integration is where value really shows up. You're not buying two separate devices, you're essentially adding a thermal layer to a single optic. For anyone who already owns a high-end riflescope and wants to extend its capability, that's a cost-effective upgrade. Conversely, if you don't already have a compatible riflescope, you'll need to invest in one separately, which can push the total price well beyond $3,000. That's a steep entry point, and it's why the Calonox is not a good starter for casual shooters or first-time hunters. Durability is another practical angle. The housing feels solid, with a rubberized grip that resists slipping even when you have gloves on. The Monocular survived a drop from waist height during a field test without noticeable impact to the optics or display. This resilience matters when you're operating in rugged environments, think mud, rain, or sudden temperature swings. The device is rated IPX7, meaning it can survive brief submersion. Still, the OLED screen is